Hi, this is Tutor Buxton. I have a background in quantity surveying, and that is why from this channel we get to learn construction quantity surveying skills, those that I've garnered throughout my career and also within the profession. We've been learning these items. We started with the basics within the construction, that is from the quantity surveying perspective, where we get to learn the basics in terms of the rules from the standard methods of measurements. We've been doing these items. When you look from the items that are ticked, that is where we started, from the cutting trees all the way up to bonding, all the items that are ticked in what is being presented now. Before today, I would like us to go into the item of calculation of backfilling, and that is the main subject of today. Before we go any further, for those who are getting us, the new viewers, I would urge you to please make a subscription so that you don't miss these videos going forward. For the returning viewers, I want to say thank you very much for being part of this channel, and I'm confident that it's been worthwhile being a member of it and also learning from it in equal measure. I would like us to go on and the items that we've covered, the ones that are ticked. The new viewers would be wondering how to move forward from where we are in terms of the items that have already been done, to make a link between what we are going to cover today. The videos of the items that have been covered already are attached, within the channel, and therefore for you to get them, just maybe make a search of any item that you are looking for, then you will find such videos. Then you'd go through them to get your basics right, and thereafter you are able to link up properly with what we are covering now. Straight into what we need to do for today, we are talking about backfilling. Backfilling, there is an image that is presented here, which is normally my approach, because I like to show a relation in terms of what I'm discussing and what you can see as well, because when you are able to see it properly, I believe that it's easier for you to understand it even better. What's presented is a hardcore filling. This is normally just to make up the levels so that you are able to have a raised ground. Of course, you can normally have that one course, or maybe say 150 millimeters or 200 millimeters height above the original ground level. So it's basically you're doing the filling of hardcore to make up for the levels. And also there is a backfilling at the external sides of the foundations. When you have a look at this particular wall, there is the filling to the external side, because definitely this was a trench at the onset, but then after you've done the foundation concrete and then you've done the foundation walling, then you backfill with the materials. So there are different ways in which you can do that backfilling to the external sides. One would be you can do the backfilling using the excavated materials, provided that the items that you are using are of good quality in terms of the nature of the soil and so on. But if at all those items are let me say for it's black cotton soil, then definitely you won't use it, because there's a possibility it's going to compromise your structural, the strength of your walling in one way or another, because it soaks water, or it allows much water to that is possibly going to weaken the masonry foundation wall. Backfilling, from these sessions we got to summarize the items that we're using. These are the rules that are applicable here, so that we are able to see that this particular item is measured in using this particular set of rules. When you look at item 27, we are talking about backfilling to the sides of foundations done in cubic meters. So once you've known the unit in which you are measuring those items, then it's easier for you to get the specific dimensions that are required, so that you move on in your taking off. So we are going to start with the backfilling to the external sides of foundations. Okay, then we move to the filling of the hardcore filling and so on. The plan that we are using for our work here is this. So this from this plan we are getting to this is the plan that we've been doing from the start, that is from the site clearance. Then we went to all the subsequent items that we have covered, the ones that I showed ticked. So from this plan we are going to do the backfilling to the external sides of foundations, and it's important that you can relate. To the right hand side we have the foundations and we have the backfilling. So what you need to know is how to do the exact measurement of that particular backfilling to the external sides of foundation you're having before these items are presented to you, in terms of before you implement the drawing on site. So you already have the drawing. Okay, before implementation you only have the drawing. So that drawing is where you need to get your items right, and go on and do the estimate for that backfilling. So I would also like to show you that from that item that you have, from that drawing that you have, there is the bit where there is now the part where you have the section as well. The section is able to guide it properly in how to move forward and calculate what you are talking about. So let me just show from this particular drawing. Then you can also see quite clearly that this is a section of a foundation strip. Of course there are different items that you can relate. If you can't, then from the previous sessions they are also given in much detail. So the part that we are going to do the backfilling is the part where we have arrow, the lower arrow. The lower arrow is pointing the sides of the excavation, and when you can relate, when you check the image to the right, then you can see the wall. So the wall has been represented. The wall is constant. Okay, this is where the wall is, and the wall is here. And then now the external sides of the foundations, of course we are just relying on, or we are concerned about the part where we have the trench. So you remember we did the trench of say 2 feet or 600 millimeters, if you could say so. Then now to the external side of it is where we are going to do the backfilling. So we need to do it in cubic meters, and cubic meters, then we need 3 dimensions. So that is straight on what we are required to calculate, or required to find those particular dimensions, and then we get our volume of backfilling of the materials. So we'll start on and do what we have to do in terms of the calculations just right here, in just right away. So let's do it. So we are going to do backfilling to external sides of the foundations. So that is what we are starting with, and alright, so leave alone what is coming on now. So basing on our plan, because that is our main reference, and of course you've seen from the section it's supposed to be on the external side, so we need to get that particular length. Alright, so we'll proceed. For this plan, the plan that we've been using, of interest is the length, because we are now doing the backfilling to the external sides. Then the length is of essence, but which length? That is the question. We already calculated now the length along the center line of this particular plan. Before we go to the center line, we had the perimeter externally. So we'll just get back to what we had calculated so that you see and we get on the same page. So I've just zoomed it in so that you can see that quite well. So this is what we have. The center line was calculated. Yes, it's at this point. So before we go to the center line, we had the total perimeter externally. So external dimension is what is at the external face of the foundation wall, but then now the length that we need is slightly at the center of the external spread. Okay, the length we need is at the center of the external spread. Okay, so just let me just show this as well. So this is the foundation strip. This is the wall, and the wall has been presented here. It's similar. Okay, so what I'm just the mark I've made, that is the wall. And when you refer to the other side, this is the wall where my cursor is moving on. Okay, so the same wall, but then the volume that we need is where we have the lower arrow. Okay, to the right. When you get to the left, that particular point should be the length that we are going to use, should be the center of it. So our foundation strip is 600 millimeters wide. Internal spread is 200. Wall is 200 wide, and then the external spread is also 200 wide. Therefore, for the volume of the external, the volume of that backfilling, it's going to be, we now get from the in reference to what we have as the external perimeter, which we had calculated here, that being used as the reference, then we now need to get the center line for the external spread. And how do we get so? We now use the same approach that we used to get the center line. We subtracted, because from outside you subtract the walls, the corners, using the distance, the rule of distance moved. Also a rule that we had covered here, meaning that you get half of the wall times the wall thickness times half, okay, times 2 times 4, meaning that in every corner you will be having to move 4 times. Okay, in every corner you'll be moving twice, so 2 times 4. Okay, so that is it. We get the volume to the external spread. So what we've said, using the rule of distance moved, that is also one of the items covered here. I'll just present that as well, so that you are able to understand. So the rule of distance moved says that every corner of the wall you either add or subtract half the wall thickness twice, and then presumably for every room of this house, or for every perfect plan, then we'll be using an assumption of 4 corners. Even despite the number of corners, the number of corners to be used are 4. Okay, so this is the rule of the distance moved, and then we applied the rule, and from that rule, this is what we got using the center line that we had. But then our focus today is on what we call the perimeter, and then we now add, we're using that rule of distance moved to get the center line externally. Therefore we'll use the same formula, but then now adding it to perimeter, not the center line this time. Okay, so the perimeter that we had already calculated, I just want to also present it here. So this is the perimeter, 64.4. Of course, I'll also just zoom out so that you're able to follow those dimensions, just to see them quite well. Okay, I believe that is visible enough. So this is the length, this is the plan that we used. From this plan, just take a minute, maybe you can pause or any other thing, so that you are able to see those dimensions and confirm by yourself. So from this plan, we are able to find the perimeter, and the perimeter is 64.4. okay, because you can relate the 17, the 10, 7.8, all those dimensions. We got the length, we got the width, we added the 2, then we multiplied by 2. So from the external perimeter, then we move on and add those items that we have. So let's so the perimeter is 64.4. Perimeter is 64.4. Okay, so we move on. So the perimeter is 64.40, and then we'll add now we use the rule of the distance moved. So we'll be adding the thickness of that spread, because we noted that the foundation footing is 600. wall is 200, then the internal spread is 200, external spread is also 200. Okay, so add half, so we'll add 0.5, which is half, then we multiply by the thickness of that wall is 0.2. In every corner we are going to be adding twice. Okay, so we'll multiply that by 2, and then how many corners do we use? We use 4 corners. Okay, so 0.5, that is now the half, times 0.2, which is the width of that spread. Then you multiply by 2 for every corner, and then times 4, which is for the number of corners. So in this case, you will notice that we are going to use 0.4, 64.40, and then we add this other point. The perimeter that we had really calculated, 64.40, and I've just shown in a moment ago, 64.40. Then we now add using the rule of distance moved. We are going to add half of that thickness of the external spread, which is 200. So it's 0.5 times 0.2. In every corner there is that movement twice for every direction, okay, along the length and along the width. So we do it twice, then times the number of corners, which is 4. So basically that is the rule of distance moved. So when we add, we multiply that, we get 0.8, then we add to 64.4 and get 65.20 as now the length, okay, the center line of the external spread. So once we have the center line, the width is 0.2, okay, and then we now get the depth that is going to be backfilled. So that is the next. So we have already that. Then we talk about the width. Width is equals to 0.20, and then we calculate now the depth. For you to get the depth properly, then you have to go back to the section. That is normally the approach. You have to go back to the section and calculate what is there. Okay, so this is what we have in terms of the section. So for this section, we are required to get the depth of the backfilling. You remember that there are different items that we have here. First of all, we are done stripping of the topsoil, 150 millimeters, and of course up to this point we are going to have an item there, so we are not going to backfill the portions where we have the footing and the blinding. What therefore that means is that when the total here was 1.5, for instance, up to this point, up to the bottom, then you need to subtract what we call the top. The top is the topsoil, the 150, from that particular dimension, and then you also need to subtract the depth of the blinding, assuming it's 50 millimeters, and then you also subtract the depth of the concrete footing. Therefore, what remains is now from, for instance, this given point, okay, where that arrow is showing. So from that point up to somewhere here. So that is now the scope of the item that we need to work on in terms of backfilling. So that is just a basic approach or a basic explanation on how to arrive to that depth that you need to backfill. So we'll go on and calculate our depth. So therefore depth is equals to, assuming that the total depth was 1.5, okay, from the top of the excavation, from the original ground level, depending on your reference. So we'll use a reference of 1.50, okay, and then we'll less blinding, okay. So blinding in this case we'll say 0.05, okay. So then you also less, or rather let me make the arrangement a bit better. So the total items that we are lessing, one of them is 0.05, and then another one is 0.2 for the footing, and then we'll also less the topsoil that will assume we are done to be 0.15. So we'll use this, we'll add these items that we need to less, 0.05, 0.2, that's giving us 0.40. So just underline, and then you add the items that is supposed to be 0.40. Okay, so once you have that, all right, so we have 0.40. So 0.40 is what you need to subtract from the total depth that you used, which is 1.50. Okay, so you bring the 0.4 this point and subtract. So 1.5 minus 1.5 minus 0.4. So just arrange it and put it at that point. So that is giving you 0.40. So that should give you 1.1. Okay, so in this case, say it's this is 1.1. So once you've already calculated, just find this, and that is 1.10. So you already have that. You already have that calculation in terms of the depth. Basically, what you need to focus on is the concept of how to arrive to that particular length, in the sense that it can be varying in terms of your main reference of where you are starting your backfilling. Okay, maybe you did a mass excavation of maybe 400 and so on. So the essence is you need to just get the portion that is having what should be backfilled, taking note of the items that are already in place, including the footing, including the blinding. So that is basically the approach. That is the main principle that you need to focus on while doing the backfilling. So we already have the 3 dimensions that we ought to have, including the length, including the width, and also we've just got our depth in this part here. So we'll go on and enter our dimensions. After that, then we move to the next item. So let's see what of course dimensions we've already calculated here, so just see how to enter that into our taking off sheet and move on with it. Okay, so let's see what is next. Entering of the dimensions that we've already just calculated. Okay, so the first one here is length. Length, we got it to be 65.2, so just add it here, 65.20, and then the width is now 0.20, and then the depth is now 1.10. so the 3 that we've already calculated is now going to give us the volume for what we should have in terms of backfilling to external sides of foundation. So once you have that, then you are okay now to move on and make your description as well. So as usual, just bracket properly what is there. Once you've bracketed, then you now go on and have your description in place. Okay, so you can just talk about backfilling to external sides of foundations. Okay, so maybe you'd wish to talk about the types of material that you are using. So basically, just make sure that all the items that are needed are taken care of in terms of the material, in terms of the location of where you are doing that particular backfilling. So basically that's what is required of you, and that is how you go about backfilling to external sides of foundations. I believe that was quite elaborate, and it would be worthwhile to understand how to go about the same. So let's see what we've covered. We've covered the backfilling to sides of excavations, the foundations. Then next we'd look at hardcore bed filling. Okay, so we'll look at the hardcore bed. So from the image that is presented here, you understand this is a hardcore filling, and from this hardcore we therefore need to know how to relate this with the plan. Okay, how do you relate this with the plan, and how exactly do you estimate it. Okay, so you notice that the hardcore is within the wall. Okay, it's within the wall, and when you refer to our rules, the rule tells us that when the hardcore is less than 300 millimeters in thickness, that is now item number 28, then you need to measure it in square meters. Okay, you measure it in square meters stating the thickness. But when the hardcore is more than 300, then you will do it in cubic meters. In this case, our assumption is it's 300 millimeters, the exactly 300 millimeters. So we'll do our measurements in square meters. But being that it's within the walls, then there are two ways that you'd approach it. First of all, you'd measure it within the spaces of the wall. For instance, in this plan, you'd measure it, number one, for maybe item for part 1, you just measure the area that is within that particular point, okay, within those walls. So basically you exclude the areas for the walls. Alternative 2, that's now based on your assessment, you can just do the exact the area where you have the areas where you had your slab. Okay, so when you look at what we have, let's see from our taking off what we have calculated so far. We had done, let's see, I believe we had done even the slab. Let's just get it through concrete blinding. Just see where we have. Okay, this is footing, and then so this is the slab. So we already calculated our slab. Let me just also zoom it in so that you are able to see properly. So vibrator reinforced concrete slab. So this is what we had calculated to be the area for our slab, and therefore you can use this. In fact, this is even an easier approach. You can use this as the area, okay, and then you now need to subtract the areas for the walls, because also you've already calculated the walling. When you have the walling, just take the total length of the walls times 0.2, or the width of that particular walling, so that you ease your time in terms of getting the exact area of the hardcore. So you simply take the total area that you've already calculated, that is for the slab, and then you now adjust it by subtracting the areas for the walls, because you need the hardcore just within the walls. Okay, so that is an easier approach to use for you to calculate what you're talking about, as for you to get now the area for the hardcore. So that is what we need to do right now. So once you've identified that you need to have the area, and then you adjust for the areas for the wall, I mean the area for the slab, then you need to make your adjustment for the area for the walls. Then if you have not calculated the slab area, then you will proceed and calculate that slab area, and then you subtract those areas for the walls. For our case, we had done it. Just take a minute and relate the areas that we have in terms of the slab. We already calculated our areas for the slab. Therefore, it means we'll now get this total area, and then we now deduct the areas for the walls. Okay, so what we'll do, you simply enter the dimensions, assuming that you've not done the squaring off where you get now the specific areas for these items. You just re-enter the dimensions there, and then you also indicate a portion where you are deducting the areas. You are deducting the areas for the walls. So the areas for the walls on the face, or I mean at the top, okay, where you will be using the length times the width of those particular walls. So the length for the walls, we had done them as well, some I believe in the previous session, and this is what we got to be the length for the walls. Okay, so we had external wall is 63.6, and then internal walls 12.5. Okay, so we'll enter the dimensions, or we get the area for the slab, and then we subtract the area for the wall. That's the easiest approach that you would use when you need to get now the area for our backfilling, or hardcore filling. So we'll go straight and enter the dimensions here. So this is 17.00 and then 5.10, that is dimension set 1, and then 6.30 and 6.00, that is set 2, and then another one is 8.20 and then 3.80. So once you have that, and then now you are going to deduct, so we'll just indicate to the side, deducting now the length for the wall. Okay, so the wall, the external wall was 63.40, just to make a reference so that we are sure. It was 63.6 actually, 63.60 and 12.5. Okay, this is 6, and then so the width that we are using is now 0.2, because we are using the width of that, the thickness of that wall, so that it gives us an area that we need to subtract from the total area to adjust for the slab. And then another one is 12.50 and 0.20. Okay, so that is what we have here to deduct. So once you have all the items taken note of in terms of the area, the total area for the slab, then you just indicate for the area of the walls that you need to subtract by indicating that you need to deduct the areas below it. Okay, so at the time of squaring, maybe they might be having a negative sign or any other item, as long as you can make a reference so that you know that you are adjusting the total area for the slab to have the area for the hardcore, since the hardcore is placed within the walls, so you need to have it net. Alright, so you will go ahead and make your description. So this is hardcore bed filling. Just indicate or describe hardcore bed filling to make up levels. Okay, total depth of 300 millimeters, or rather in any way that you will describe it, maybe 300 millimeters thick hardcore bed filling to make up levels. Okay, hand packed, maybe you can talk about hand packed in layers not exceeding 150 millimeters and so on. So all that depend on what you deduce from the rules that you have, but as long as you have all the items taken care of, then you are good to go. So from these, then there are other items in terms of filling that go with the same area. So you would you would put them together, you would describe them together, because they are going to use the same area that we have for the hardcore. And these include, we just get back to our taking off list, or the order of items that we have, and we've talked about, okay, DPC, level on that, backfilling, so hardcore bed filling. So we also have maram blinding and then insecticide treatment. So those items, they have the same area that hardcore bed is having, so we'll combine them together. So we'll also put here maram blinding to surfaces of the hardcore bed. So you've dealt with that as well. Then you will go straight and also include insecticide treatment to hardcore surfaces. Okay, so unless the hardcore has been measured in cubic meters, if it's done in area, then these other two items also use square meters as a unit of measurement. So you can always combine them together and do them as one item in terms of the area. So that brings us to our end of the session today, where we're covering about just backfilling and also hardcore filling. So I believe it's been worthwhile. Kindly make a subscription before you exit, so that you don't miss more of the coming sessions. So thank you very much. Stay tuned till we meet again in our next session, where we are going to now do the finishes to the substructures level, and then we call the substructures done and move on to the next set of items that we need to cover within this channel. So thank you very much. Stay great till we meet again. Bye bye.